The anime begins 1 year after the death of General Wang Qi. At that time, Shin was already the captain of his own unit, the Fei Shin unit, which had 300 members. At that time, Shin and his unit were participating in a war against another country. His unit is now also filled with several strong people, including Song Zuo, Chang Yuan, Zhe Gui, Long Chuan, Wei Ping, Lu Yan, Pei Long, Tian Yang, Tian Yu, Yuan, Qiang Lei, who served as vice captain, and who last of course captained Shin. Thanks to the Fei Shin unit's hard work, the Qin Kingdom won the war that day. The scene changes. At school, everyone gathers to study war strategy. The two pillars of Lucy who were talking were none other than Chong Pingjun and Chai Zhe. During the conversation, Pingjun said he was interested in Shin's talent and wanted to see how far his strength could grow. Diao is also seen at the school because she is currently one of the students. Unexpectedly, Diao apparently became good friends with the son of one of Lucy's pillars, Meng Wu, whose name was Meng Yi. There, they talked about how a new era had begun. Diao thought there were still many great people like Shin, but they had not yet appeared. Meng Yi then commented that there was also his elder brother among those great people, but he said that his elder brother didn't like being tied down. The scene changes, showing a narration that explains Fei Shin's unit, which is assigned as a special unit to give sudden attacks in war. So the movements of Fei Shin's units always surprise their enemies. Thanks to that achievement, their names were quickly known among the enemies. One day, Shin and Lei, who was resting, suddenly had a palace envoy who informed them that Shin had been asked to come to the palace by Peng Jun. When they arrived at the palace, they were surprised by Peng Jun, who gave them a special task to kill Li Mu, the envoy of the Zhao Kingdom, who was coming to the palace of the Qin Kingdom. But Shin immediately refused Peng Jun's order because he thought killing secretly was the act of a coward. Peng Jun again said that if he gave the task to Shin as Wang Qi's spear successor, he also suspected that Li Mu would use violence during the meeting. Hearing this, Shin agreed to that, with one condition: he would kill Li Mu if Li Mu used violence. A while later, Li Mu, who served as the prime minister of the Zhao Kingdom, finally arrived at the Qin Kingdom's palace and was greeted by Lucy. Lucy, who likes to be honest, immediately said he would finish off Li Mu on the spot, but Li Mu calmly said he had something for the Qin Kingdom. Li Mu then ordered his aide to open a large map. He surprisingly offered an alliance between the Qin Kingdom and the Zhao Kingdom to fight against other countries where the plains of China were divided into 7 major countries at that time. The former adjutant of General Wang Qi, who heard about this, disagreed and said that he would finish off Li Mu and his men on the spot. However, Lucy stopped his efforts and told Li Mu that if he wanted to form an alliance with Qin Kingdom, the Zhao Kingdom must give one of its castles or fortresses to Qin Kingdom. Without further ado, Lucy directly asked for a stronghold called Honggao. The Honggao fortress was located midway between the Qin Kingdom, Zhao Kingdom, and Wei Kingdom, so that any kingdom that has the fort will benefit in many ways. Li Mu then said that he did not have the authority to surrender the castle because it had to be through the decision of the king of Zhao himself. But Lucy threatened to kill Li Mu and his men if they did not surrender Honggao fortress at once. In the end, he agreed to surrender the Honggao fortress, so an alliance of the two kingdoms was formed. Actually, Li Mu came to Qin Kingdom initially because he was asked by his king to release the confidant of the king of Zhao named Chun. It turned out that Lucy had previously kidnapped Chun, but he freed Chun while asking for another hostage so that Zhao Kingdom would not betray them. So the Zhao Kingdom finally sent one of its important figures to him. After that, Shin went to King Zheng and asked why Lucy held all the control in the previous meeting while King Zheng seemed not to be considered. King Zheng replied that he was pretending to be stupid, so no one would notice his presence. He is waiting for his official enthronement in 5 years when he is already 20 years old. When the time comes, King Zheng will seize power from Lucy's hands. Therefore, he asked Shin to reach the position of great general within 5 years so that he could fight by his side. The next day, Fei Shin's unit returned to work by ambushing groups of soldiers from other kingdoms. Unexpectedly, the army had a giant warrior, but Shin bravely faced him one-on-one and managed to defeat him with one slash. After the task was completed, Shin was visited by B. B met Shin to give him secret information. B said since the Zhao Kingdom was no longer a threat to them, it was certain that the Qin Kingdom would launch a big campaign to fight against the Wei Kingdom. B told him such classified information because he wanted Shin to achieve a great feat in the war. B also reminded Shin that to achieve this, he must compete with many great people who already know about his information. As time passed before a major campaign took place, Fei Shin's unit continued to make achievements by participating in small wars and always succeeding in beheading the enemy general. But one day, when the Fei Shin unit participated in the war and broke through the enemy general's base, someone apparently succeeded in destroying it. Not long after, the person who destroyed the base came to meet Shin and Fei Shin's unit. Where did the group leader tell them they were Yufeng's unit with 300 horsemen from the southern Qin Kingdom? Soon after, the Yufeng unit soldiers laughed at all the Fei Shin soldiers and called them all like peasant soldiers. Yufeng's leader then boasted that his unit was no match for Fei Shin's unit because they were the most talented people from military families. Hearing that, Shin was angry and tried to attack, but he was dropped by the head of the Yufeng unit, who introduced himself as Wang Ben. It was discovered there that Wang Ben was still in the same family as General Wang Qi. After being humiliated by Wang Ben, it was the next day when Yufeng's unit returned to seek achievements in the war. This time it was Wang Ben and his unit who were preceded by Fei Sin's unit. Shin then insulted Yufeng's unit, saying that their military training meant little. After that day, rivalries continued between Fei Sin and Yufeng's units until their prowess was talked about by the other units. On the other side, there was an introduced unit called the Yuehua unit led by Meng Tian. He turned out to be Meng Wu's son and Meng Yi's elder brother. However, Meng Tian seemed uninterested in following in the footsteps of the Fei Sin unit and the Yufeng unit, who were busy seeking achievements. 2 years had passed since General Wang Qi's death. It was seen that King Zheng and his ministers were talking about Lu Si, who said that person's power and influence were getting stronger day by day. Now on King Zhen's side, Zizi suggests forming an alliance with a third-party group to compete with Lu Si's power in the kingdom. He said that even Lu Si's group didn't dare to mess with the group. He suggested the idea because, apparently, last night, the third group of forces came to his house carrying a scroll bearing the symbol of the legal seal of the King of Qin. After that, the scene shows the third power group that the ministers meant earlier. They are called the Harem group, living in a forbidden castle in the Qin kingdom. Not just anyone can go there because only female servants and eunuchs can come to that place. It finally explains why the harem has the King of Qin's seal because it turns out that the group's leader is none other than King Zheng's mother. Even so, King Zheng said that it was not easy to get the third-party forces to form an alliance with them because it turned out that since childhood, he and his mother had a bad relationship. King Zheng then asked Zizi to open the scroll sent by his mother's group. But strangely, the scroll contents turned out to be empty. Seeing that, Zizi and Wang Jun concluded that the harem chose to be neutral and not side with King Zheng or Lu Si. But King Zheng believed that the blank paper had a different meaning. The next day, Zizi accidentally saw King Zheng going out with the eunuchs because it turned out that he secretly wanted to go to harem. After arriving at his mother's place, King Zheng asked for a replica of the King of Qin seal that belonged to the harem group because only the king was allowed to have the seal. However, his mother asked if he came just to ask about the seal. Her question made King Zheng tell the truth that he came to ask the harem for help against Lu Si's power and influence in the kingdom. The scene switches, showing that the big campaign against the Wei kingdom has finally arrived. In this big war, the Qin kingdom appointed a general named Meng Ao to be the supreme commander of the war. Meng Ao then divided the Qin kingdom's troops into 3 groups, with himself leading the main group, where Shin and his unit would join that group. But not only the Fei Sin unit, it turned out that the Yufeng cavalry unit was also selected to be in the same group as them. On the other hand, in the palace, King Zheng was met by the 3 chief nobles who had been the powerful men behind the harem group. They had come because they agreed to form an alliance with him. However, it turned out that all of this was just a cunning trick from King Zheng's mother because that night, she had conspired and collaborated with Lu Si. It was finally discovered that before King Zheng's mother married her husband, she was Lu Si's fiancé. On the other hand, no one knew that their conversation was overheard by a girl who was King Zheng's personal maid. The girl's name is Xiang. But when she was about to report it to King Zheng, a eunuch managed to stab her stomach from behind the door. Luckily, Xiang managed to escape and was immediately helped by her friend to be taken to the palace doctor. She was unconscious for 2 days and nights and kept deliriously mentioning King Zheng. This made her friend work up the courage to meet King Zheng and tell him about it. King Zheng finally came to where Xiang was treated while bringing his personal doctor. Xiang's life was saved thanks to his 3 personal doctors. Afterward, she told him about the harem's betrayal. Not only that, but she also told King Zheng's mother's relationship with Lu Si, thus making King Zheng very grateful to his servant for telling him. On the battlefield, Meng Tian was placed in the main army, so he finally became acquainted with Shin. Not long after, the Qin kingdom's 80,000 troops finally arrived at one of the Wei kingdom's forts and immediately surrounded the fort. Shortly after, they started their attack and tried to climb up to the top of the fort. So, Fei Sin's unit was asked to break through to the east wall with a few other soldiers. However, Shin was taken aback when he and his unit arrived because the Wei kingdom troops suddenly shot arrows that killed many Qin kingdom troops. The storming of the fortress had been going on for 11 days, but the Qin kingdom's army could still not penetrate the fortress. However, that day Yufeng's unit suddenly attacked with many carts filled with sticks. After placing branches under the ramparts, they set fire to it, covering the entire Wei kingdom army's view with smoke. Not long after, a large object appeared towards the fort. When the smoke cleared, it turned out to be a giant wooden ladder belonging to Yufeng's unit that carried Wang Ben and half of his unit's troops and made it up to the top of the fort. Soon after, a battle ensued between Yufeng's unit against thousands of Wei kingdom soldiers, and because they were outnumbered, Wang Ben and his unit were surrounded. However, it turned out that Wang Ben's goal was to open the gate from the beginning so that his half-horse soldiers waiting outside could enter and launch a swift attack. When the gate opened, Wang Ben was surprised to find that it was Meng Tian and the entire Yue Hua unit who entered instead of the half-cavalry unit of the Yufeng unit. The war ended with Meng Tian getting an achievement because it was thanks to him that the Qin Kingdom's army could capture the fortress. In the afternoon, an argument broke out between the Yufeng units, who were angry that the Yue Hua units had stolen their hard work. When the debate was over, Fei Xin's unit, which was also there, accidentally saw smoke coming from the houses of the residents living in the fort. Shin, curious, went straight to the center of the fire with some of his men. When they got there, it turned out that it was the work of several Qin Kingdom soldiers who were looting and killing the residents. Shin was angry to see that and tried to stop the soldiers. But Yuan restrained him and told Shin what he saw resulted from the war. Shin then screamed to stop the people, but he became their laughingstock. Worse, the general who led the troops deliberately killed a resident in front of his eyes, thus making Shin go berserk and almost finish him. Suddenly, Meng Tian stopped Shin. Then Meng Tian said that if Shin killed a general from his own allies, he would lose everything. However, the arrogant general kicked Shin and instead intended to kill him. In the end, Shin finally slashes him. Shin then said that he didn't care, even if it was a general or a king, if they committed such atrocities in front of his eyes, he would still punish them in his own way. Hearing this, the general's men were sure that Shin would be imprisoned soon. At night, they were surprised because Shin only received 1 night's imprisonment. A soldier explained that he was only defending himself from the general who had attacked him first. Instead, the evil general's representative was brought to be punished. Then it was discovered that Shin has freed from severe punishment thanks to Meng Tian asking for the help of a general named Luo Luoyan. The scene shifts to the Wei Kingdom's capital. So, the king of Wei was furious because of the invasion of the Qin Kingdom. But he admitted that he didn't panic because now a former member of the 3 great gods from the Zhao Kingdom had defected to the Wei Kingdom's side. That person was named Lian Po, who explained that the 3 Zhao gods were great generals whose strength was highly acclaimed and said to be on par with the 6 legendary generals of the Qin Kingdom. Lian Po turned out to have betrayed his own country because he and the new king of the Zhao Kingdom named Dao Xiang did not like each other. Even when Dao Xiang had just been appointed as king of Zhao, he revoked the title. It turned out that Lian Po did not rebel alone, but he brought the 4 pillars with him. They were Jiang Yan, Lun Hu, Xuan Feng, and Jie Zifang. The scene shifted to show the war that had been going on for several days. One night, Shin was visited by a 1,000-man general named Guo Bei, who told Shin he was a slave just like him. Guo Bei had supported Shin for a long time because Shin reminded him of his past. Before leaving, Guo Bei advised him to always be enthusiastic so that Shin would not lose to aristocratic or military families. Sadly, after leaving Shin's place, Guo Bei was finished off by Lun Hu, one of the pillars of Lian Po who was infiltrating. His death angered the Qin Kingdom's soldiers, especially Shin and his unit. Not long after, 2 soldiers came to tell that night it was not only Guo Bei but 1,000-man general also got killed. Several days after the incident, the Qin Kingdom's soldiers were heading to another stronghold belonging to the Wei Kingdom. But along the way, Shin felt something strange. Not far from their troops, it turned out that Lun Hu continued to follow them to kill one of the generals in secret, and when everyone was off guard, he resumed his action by killing Luo Yan. After that, it seemed that all the Qin Kingdom soldiers were confused. Then Lun Hu appeared with 300 soldiers in front of Fei Xin's unit. Seeing the enemy appear, Shin moved to attack, but Lun Hu instead held his hand and brought Shin with him to a clearing. Lun Hu then asked for Shin's name and took out a letter containing the names of his target list. When Shin mentioned his name, Lun Hu said that his name was not written there, so Lun Hu left him. Shin certainly did not remain silent. He was very angry when he discovered Lun Hu had killed Guo Bei. However, he wasn't going to let Lun Hu off easily, but as the two were about to fight, several spear strikes stopped them. The spears turned out to be from the Fei Xin unit that had come to help their leader, thus making Lun Hu choose to leave there. After that, it was seen that the Qin Kingdom's army had set up tents as a base. Afterward, Meng Wu came to the commander-in-chief's headquarters to inform General Meng Ao that Lian Po was back on the move. However, General Meng Ao looked relaxed and said they didn't need to worry about that. It was finally discovered that General Meng Ao was Meng Yu's father, so he knew very well that his father was worried about Lian Po's arrival. Then Meng Yu said that since he was young, his father had never been able to beat Lian Po. At night, the scene shows General Meng Ao's habit when he is under pressure, where he will disguise himself as an ordinary soldier and head to the meadow to lie down to relax. Unexpectedly that night, he met Shin, who accidentally stepped on the commander-in-chief's face while he was lying down. In the end, General Meng Ao invited Shin to talk, and after that, he told Shin about his problem. Hearing this, Shin advises him to defeat his enemy until he can win. The next day, because the Qin Kingdom's soldiers had already lost several 1,000-men generals, they finally made plans to find 2 replacements to fill the position. But surprisingly, they will appoint 2 replacements for the 300-man captain. Meng Tian from the Yue Hua unit was the first to be promoted to the position of 1,000-man general, while the other was Wang Ben from the Yufeng unit. This decision disappointed Shin because he was not appointed and failed to get promoted. But suddenly, General Meng Ao called Shin to stand in front of him. Shin was very surprised when he saw his face, which was the grandfather he had spoken with last night. Turned out General Meng Ao intended to make Shin a 1,000-man general as well, although his men asked the commander-in-chief to reconsider his decision. His men explained that Shin used to be a slave. Therefore, to silence everyone, General Meng Ao gave him conditions to prove his worth. Shin was asked to behead 3 of the enemy generals, and if it was successful, he would be promoted. But if he failed, General Meng Ao would disband Fei Shin's unit. Hearing that, Shin accepted it without hesitation. He said he would take Lian Po's head even with great confidence. It turned out that General Meng Ao was testing Shin and only wanted to hear the answer. Upon hearing his bold reply, General Meng Ao promoted Shin to 1,000-man general of his own accord. Because of this, Shin now has an additional 700 soldiers to lead, and it turns out that the soldiers who are his men are former soldiers of Guo Bei. So they have no problem if they have to be led by a former slave because their former general's past is the same as Shin's. Even the vice general, Chu Sui, said they had no qualms about devoting their lives to Shin. The next day, the Qin Kingdom's troops arrived at the Liuyan Plains, where the Qin Kingdom and the Wei Kingdom would be fighting. When he got there, he saw General Meng Ao meet 2 men. Shortly after, Meng Tian explained to Shin that they were vice generals under direct orders from his grandfather. They were named Huang Ji and Wang Jian. He told Shin that the strength of the 2 men was like a monster. Huang Ji used to be the boss of a group of thieves who were notorious for their cruelty, and not even the Qin Kingdom could catch them. Meanwhile, Wang Jian turns out to be Wang Ben's father and a member of the Wang family, where the great General Wang Qi comes from. Hearing that, Shin was surprised. Why did the 2 people only become vice generals, even though they had great strength? Meng Tian then explained that Huang Ji was a former criminal, while Wang Jian had been exiled since the time of King Zhao. Besides that, Wang Jian was branded as dangerous because he was ambitious to become the king of Qin. On the other hand, the Wei Kingdom's troops had made it to the Liuyan Plains with a man named Bai Guoxi as their commander-in-chief. The pillars of Lian Po who were there felt surprised. Why didn't their leader become the supreme commander? Hearing that, Lian Po laughed and said he would still control the war from behind the scenes. Soon after, the war began with a general named Tu Men, who initiated the attack from the Qin Kingdom. Shortly after, Wang Ben joined him and killed many enemy soldiers with his spear. At the same time, Lun Hu started moving very quickly and wiped out several Qin Kingdom's army units. He finished off 2 1,000-man generals until he finally arrived in front of Wang Ben and all his soldiers. Soon after, a battle broke out between Private Lun Hu and Yufeng's unit led by Wang Ben. At the same time, the Qin Kingdom launched the second wave of attacks led by a general named Rong Bei, which incorporated Fei Shin's unit. Back to Wang Ben, who was dueling with Lun Hu. At first, he seemed to dominate the fight with his spear, but Lun Hu could counter with a very fast attack so that his sword managed to sink into Wang Ben's body. Even Wang Ben would have almost died if his vice general had been too late to protect him. Not long after that, Fei Shin's unit finally arrived and broke through the enemy lines. Unlike other units that separated cavalry from ground troops, Fei Shin's unit attacked groups of 1,000 people at once. Unexpectedly, Fei Shin's unit's strategy excited the other units until they could overwhelm the Wei Kingdom's troops. But when the Qin Kingdom's army was close to winning the battle, the Wei Kingdom sent a lot of smoke into the center of the battlefield. While the enemy's vision was distracted, the Wei Kingdom shot many arrows, instantly killing many of the Qin Kingdom's soldiers. All units, including Fei Shin and Yufeng, tried to move their places to avoid being shot, but unluckily the arrows were too many and seemed to follow them everywhere. In her urgency, Lei saw the Wei Kingdom soldiers making the sound of bells, so she moved to finish them off because the sound of the bell sent the signal to the archers so that the Wei Kingdom troops always knew where the Qin Kingdom soldiers were. After the arrows stopped, there are another problem for the Qin Kingdom's troops because suddenly, the Wei Kingdom sent a horse-drawn carriage to finish them all off. Lei then tells Shin they should destroy the Wei Kingdom's bells that signal archers and chariots. Hearing this, Shin ordered his unit members from a mountain clan named Qianxi to look for the existence of a bell belonging to the Kingdom of Wei because the mountain people must have a better sense of hearing. Guided by the Qianxi people, the Fei Shin cavalry unit began their bell hunt. But, suddenly, hundreds of arrows rained down on them again, killing several soldiers. However, 2 of Guo Bei's former men protect Shin from an arrow attack, though one of them later dies. Their troubles didn't end there because the Wei Kingdom had unexpectedly set a wooden stake trap to bring down Shin and all of his cavalry units. To make matters worse, Fei Shin's unit was surrounded by many Wei Kingdom soldiers. Here it was finally revealed if the bell strategy implemented by the Wei Kingdom came from one of Lian Po's pillars named Xuan Feng from the top of the wooden tower. At that time, Shin had actually made it there. Soon after, Xuan Feng ordered thousands of his soldiers to finish off the Fei Shin cavalry unit, which only had a few people left. But in the end, Shin and all of his men were helped by Yufeng's unit, who had also arrived there. Not only did Yufeng's unit, Lei and several cavalry units of Fei Shin's unit who had escaped the enemy's trap arrive there. So Shin returned to compete with Wang Ben to finish off Xuanfeng, and the two units competed for speed to get to Xuanfeng's place. But Xuanfeng instead ordered all his troops to retreat. Seeing that, Shin threw his spear at him. Unfortunately, his throw was still missed. Shu Sui then came to prevent Shin from pursuing the enemy because he said they had won the battle on the first day. Even so, Shin didn't look happy and said that even though they won, their side lost a lot of lives. It turned out that his words were true because after the smoke cleared, it could be seen that the Qin Kingdom's army had lost many of its soldiers. On the second day, Lian Po ordered Jiang Yan's pillar, who could control his soldiers' movement through arrows, to make the Qin Kingdom's troops press into the forest. But on the other hand, it turned out that General Meng Ao had already ordered Wang Jian to enter the battlefield. Meanwhile, one of the pillars, Jie Zifang, chased Huang Ji's troop of thieves. However, he could not find the boss of the thieves group, and it turned out that Huang Ji and several of his men were disguised as Wei soldiers and were already in front of them. Then they killed Xuanfeng, who was relaxing in his base. In the end, Xuanfeng died at the hands of the thief Huang Jian. Lian Po, who received the news of his death, became very angry and intended to avenge the death of one of his pillars. On the third day, surprisingly, the Yue Hua unit led by Meng Tian moved independently without orders from anyone. Then, they broke through the Wei Kingdom army. Meng Tian apparently intended to go to Lun Hu's line to target him. The scene then shows what happened the night before. It can be seen that Meng Tian is inviting Shin and Wang Ben to work together on his plan. On the battlefield, Meng Tian surprisingly divided his troops into two groups that directly engaged Lun Hu's men. Seeing this, Shin remembered Meng Tian's plan, which said that he was only targeting Lun Hu's men so that he would have difficulty moving if all his soldiers were defeated. Meng Tian's Yue Hua unit turned out to be strong enough to defeat some of Lun Hu's men, so after that, he signaled that it was time for Fei Xin's unit and Yufeng's unit to move in as well. After completing its task, Yue Hua's unit withdrew from the battlefield and alternated with Fei Xin's and Yue Hua's units. Thanks to Meng Tian's strategy, Shin and Wang Ben could finally approach Lun Hu and surround him. Lun Hu then mobilized his remaining men to face Shin while he targeted Wang Ben. However, when they were busy dueling, Shin unexpectedly came and launched an attack on Lun Hu, but it turned out he was not easy to beat, so Shin finally chose to attack him closely. While Lun Hu was off guard, Wang Ben tried to help Shin, and he was forced to fight them simultaneously. It turned out that Lun Hu was really good because he could still keep up with them. On the other hand, Jiang Yan could be seen returning with tens of thousands of soldiers toward the B unit operating in the forest. Hearing this, B and his soldiers in the forest panicked, but it turned out that Wang Jian had come and said he had come to meet B. Not only that, B was surprised because Wang Jian entrusted him to lead 5,000 soldiers to ambush Jiang Yan and his entire army in a narrow gap. After that, Wang Jian just left. Returning to Shin, who had not been able to defeat Lun Hu, he was hit by Lun Hu's sword. Unfortunately, Shin was pressed, while Wang Ben, who had been injured in the previous battle, could not do much. When he was about to lose consciousness, Shin remembered strong people like General Wang Qi and General Biao Gong. This made Shin realize that to become like them, he must rise again. Shin, who got back up, then attacked Lun Hu with extraordinary strength, so strong that his attack managed to destroy the armor on Lun Hu's arm. But Wang Ben approached Shin and said it was time for them to withdraw, as both units ran out of time. So, in the end, the Fei Xin and Yufeng units were forced to retreat and let Lun Hu live. Meanwhile, B and his troops had already started an attack on the enemy troops led by Jiang Yan. The enemy troops were trapped in a narrow gap and fired upon by countless arrows, while they could not retreat because the exit was blocked by B's troops. Not long after, B descended from the cliff with thousands of soldiers to target Jiang Yan directly. But it turns out to be a trap because B brought all his troops down from the cliff. Jiang Yan instead shot arrows into the air as a signal, and then thousands of Wei Kingdom troops appeared on top of the cliff and took turns surrounding B and his entire army. The arrows began to kill many of B's troops, not only from above the hordes of Wei Kingdom troops, they shot at B on a horse. This made him and his troops try to escape, and then he continued to flee toward the front, but he was not aware that Jiang Yan was already in front of him. When B was about to be finished off, Wang Jian suddenly came and again seized the top of the cliff from the enemy. Even so, several soldiers of the Qin Kingdom managed to fall from the top of the cliff by someone who turned out to be Lian Po. His presence certainly increased the morale of all his troops until their screams were heard by everyone on another battlefield. The Wei Kingdom's army that had gone mad charged toward the Qin Kingdom's army. Lian Po, on the hill, asked that he wanted to see what Wang Jian's class was doing in a desperate situation because, according to rumors, his strength was equivalent to the 6 legendary generals. Then Lian Po was surprised because Wang Jian instead ordered all his units to flee through the small gap there. Wang Jian said he was not interested in getting into a battle he couldn't win. Then Lian Po and the entire Wei Kingdom army continued searching for Wang Jian, who apparently did not completely escape because he had set up a fort on one of the hills and was waiting for the enemy troops there. On the day when the fighting stopped, Lian Po was seen setting up camp near Wang Jian's hill fort. He told Jiang Yan that they would end the war the next day. The next day, the war has been going on for 6 days. It can be seen that General Meng Ao assigned Rong Bei to command the left flank, where Fei Xin's unit was affiliated, while 2 men was on the right, along with Yu Feng's unit and Yue Hua's unit. On the other side, the Wei Kingdom troops led by Lun Hu started their attack, where all the Wei Kingdom cavalry appeared to form 2 large circles. Then General Meng Ao said Lun Hu's strategy is called the wheel spin. According to rumors, this strategy had previously penetrated General Wang Qi's defense. That strategy was like a whirlwind and could instantly break through the Qin Kingdom's defenses. Unexpectedly, Lun Hu and his troops aimed at the left flank led by Rong Bei, thus making him, who noticed this, rush forward but lose to Lun Hu with just 1 slash. Seeing this, Shin ordered Lei and his 200 soldiers to stand guard on the spot while he and the rest were to face Lun Hu's troops. It took him only a short time. Soon after, Fei Xin's unit was finally confronted by Lun Hu's troops. Then Shin was targeted by Lun Hu because he failed to kill Lun Hu the previous day. Soon after, Shin returned to duel with him, although his extraordinary strength pushed Shin down. On the other hand, Lian Po bravely suddenly came alone to the hill, which was used as the base by General Meng Ao. Lian Po came there to challenge him to a one-on-one duel, but he did not give an answer, so Lian Po finally summoned all his soldiers to that place as well. Lian Po then ordered his men to go up to General Meng Ao's place, but they were showered with arrows. Seeing this, he moved to the left of the enemy's defense, but it turned out that General Meng Ao had placed many archers in the forest and took turns raining on the Wei Kingdom's troops. At the same time, the Wei Kingdom's troops attacked the right and were slowly able to climb up the hill as well, but again the Qin Kingdom's troops attacked with arrows and managed to finish them off, so that only left Lian Po and the remnants of his troops who attacked from the left. The scene switches back to Shin. At that time, his right leg was intentionally stabbed by Lun Hu, so he had difficulty controlling his horse. However, the smart Shin realized he could not fight on a horse, so he jumped and pulled Lun Hu's armor, causing both of them to fall. The scene returns to the hill, where Lian Po's troops are continuously showered with arrows by their enemies, causing many of the Wei Kingdom's troops to fall down. But everyone was confused because Lian Po was nowhere to be seen, and it turned out that Lian Po and some of his troops had managed to go up and finish off the archers. Not long after, the rain started wetting the battlefield, but Shin continued to duel against Lun Hu. Even though it was seen that Lun Hu's strength was superior to his, Shin never gave up and continued to serve Lun Hu in close combat. Seeing that the fight between them was not over, one of Lun Hu's men intended to attack Shin from behind. Thankfully, Chu Sui could thwart his attack. However, Chu Sui fell in front of Lun Hu, causing him to be directly slashed by Lun Hu. But because of that, Lun Hu became a little off guard and made him hit by an attack from Shin. Even though he was hit by a heavy attack, Lun Hu could still get up while saying he couldn't die there because his leader was waiting for him. Hearing that, Shin said that he couldn't lose because Piao, General Wang Qi, and King Zheng already believed in him. Soon after, Shin and Lun Hu fought again, but this time Shin could slash Lun Hu's body again and continued to stab him, who was cornered so that he finally died in the fight. When Fei Xin's unit was celebrating their victory, Long Chuan suddenly said that he could not see where Lei and the 200 troops were. It turned out that they had been ordered to guard the headquarters of General Meng Ao. Shortly after, one of the Wei Kingdom's soldiers told them that Lun Hu had previously killed them. He asked them to send their backup unit to the place. Hearing that, Shin rushed back to Lei's place and saw that the Qin Kingdom's soldiers had all died, even though they couldn't find Lei at that place. However, while looking for Lei, Fei Xin's unit was surprised by the many corpses of Wei Kingdom soldiers killed by Lei alone. But because of that fight, Lei was injured quite badly and then fainted. After that, Shin left her with Yuan while he headed up the hill where General Meng Ao's headquarters was. Shin, who was going alone, accidentally met Yue Hua's unit heading for the top of the hill. Meanwhile, Meng Tian was worried about his grandfather's condition after he knew that General Meng Ao's headquarters had been attacked by Lian Po. Soon after, Lian Po finally met General Meng Ao, who was getting ready to mount his horse. Lian Po then mocked him by saying he was the only general he could not kill because he always ran away. Because of that, the fight began, and Lian Po quickly scratched General Meng Ao's body with his spear, although he managed to dodge it, so the wound was not too deep. Afterward, General Meng Ao said that he would not be like before. This time he made sure to face Lian Po and win the battle. Then, he counterattacked and knocked Lian Po down, and they continued to fight fiercely. Thanks to Shin's words, General Meng Ao seemed to be able to keep up with Lian Po. Shortly after, Meng Tian and Shin finally arrived there too. Not long after, General Meng Ao could bring down Lian Po's horse. Still, when he was about to finish off him, Lian Po attacked back and slashed General Meng Ao's body. Seeing that, Meng Tian certainly didn't stay silent and went forward with his 2 soldiers, but Lian Po could take down all 3 at once with 1 strike. When Lian Po returned to General Meng Ao's presence, Shin suddenly threw down Lun Hu's sword that he was carrying and boldly told Lian Po that he had finished off one of his pillars. Hearing this, Lian Po remembered that he had picked up Lun Hu since the child was small, so he was very angry and approached Shin. But Shin was not daunted and said he wanted to know what it was like to fight with someone whose strength was equal to the 6 legendary generals. Soon after, Lian Po managed to press Shin's body to the ground, but unexpectedly, he could withstand Lian Po's strength. Seeing them fight, General Meng Ao intends to stop Lian Po by saying that Shin, who managed to withstand his attack, indicates that now times have changed. But Lian Po said he didn't care about the changing era. Suddenly, 2 of Meng Tian's men tried to protect Shin, causing the Wei Kingdom soldiers who saw that to come forward in unison. This causes the war to move up the hill, and Lian Po intends to kill Shin again. However, General Meng Ao again tries to stop him by telling Lian Po that Shin is the heir to General Wang Qi's spear. Hearing this, Lian Po suddenly stopped because even though he was an enemy of the 6 legendary generals, he really respected General Wang Qi. He then asked Shin how General Wang Qi was when he died. After that, Shin conveyed General Wang Qi's words that the stronger of the new era would kill the strongest. He said that General Wang Qi died with dignity. Not long after, Jie Zifeng came to the place with the Wei Kingdom's large army. But everyone's attention was turned to the smoke coming from the hill where the Wei Kingdom troops were located, where Huangji and his entire army of thieves had conquered the enemy base and captured Bai Guoxi, the supreme commander of the Wei Kingdom. Huangji said he would spare Bai Guoxi if he begged for mercy. He knew Bai Guoxi had not done anything as the commander-in-chief because Lian Po controlled everything. But Bai Guoxi said he would rather die than bow down to the Qin Kingdom's soldiers, so Huangji killed him. Back at the Qin Kingdom's army base, Jie Zifeng was seen continuing to attack even though his base had been taken down, and Meng Tian tried to stop the big man even though he was no match for Jie Zifeng. When Jie Zifeng was about to finish off General Meng Ao, suddenly, Lian Po ordered them to retreat, and he had already admitted defeat. Lian Po said it was not without reason. He said that even though he could win the battle, the Qin Kingdom's army still had Wang Jian, who led 10,000 troops. At this time, Wang Jian was only keeping an eye on the situation, but if he started attacking, the Wei Kingdom would definitely lose. Lian Po then asked General Meng Ao to make a peace treaty as a condition for his resignation. He asked General Meng Ao to promise to let the Wei Kingdom's army leave alive and that the Qin Kingdom's troops would not touch the residents of Shanyang City. It turned out, Shanyang City was the city that the Qin Kingdom would seize after the war. Hearing that, General Meng Ao accepted all the conditions from Lian Po. Then his words indicated that the Qin Kingdom had finally won the war against the Wei Kingdom. Afterward, Jie Zifeng apologized to his leader because he had lost track of Huangji, thus allowing Huangji to destroy their base. But Lian Po said that it was not Huangji who made him surrender, but that it was because Lun Hu, who led the central army, had been defeated by Shin. Lian Po then returned to Shin and asked if he wanted to become a legend just like the 6 generals and 3 gods. Shin replied that he didn't want to be like Lian Po, but he wanted to surpass him. Hearing this, Lian Po said it would be difficult for Shin to become a legend like the 6 generals and 3 gods. But Lian Po said that one way to surpass them was to do something that the previous legends had never been able to achieve, which was none other than to unify the Chinese plains. Therefore, Shin promised to surpass the legends by uniting the entire plains of China in one government. Hearing his promise, Lian Po threw Lun Hu's sword at him and left the battle scene. After Lian Po left, General Meng Ao announced their victory to all the soldiers below the hill. The next day, the news of the victory finally reached the Qin Kingdom palace. During that war, it was known that 2 people got great achievements, Huangji, who had taken over the enemy base, and Shin, who had defeated Lun Hu. Knowing all of that made King Zheng very happy. On the other hand, the Fei Xin unit felt sad because when night fell, Lei decided to leave the Fei Xin unit to continue her mission to find the killer of her elder sister. Meanwhile, Lian Po, who caused the defeat, was expelled from the Wei Kingdom along with his remaining pillars. 1 month after the war, Generals Meng Ao, Huangji, and Shin were invited to the palace to receive awards. General Meng Ao was promoted and given a lot of wealth for successfully leading the Qin Kingdom to victory, and Huangji, who had succeeded in killing the supreme commander of the enemy. After Huangji, now it was Shin's turn to be summoned to the front. Shin got some treasures, and more importantly, he was finally officially made a 1,000-man general. Several months had passed since Shin's appointment as a 1,000-man general. It was seen that night that he was angry in front of all his troops because, in the last few wars, they always suffered defeat. Not long after, Meng Tian came there and tried to help find out what was wrong with the Fei Xin unit, and it turned out that they had not had a strategist in their army since Lei left. Meng Tian then tells him that he may lose his rank if he continues to lose. However, Meng Tian said that he owed Shin a debt of gratitude, so he would help bring in one of the best strategists for the Fei Xin unit, who was none other than his younger brother. 10 days later, when Meng Tian was walking around the city, he said to one of his vice-generals that his younger brother must have arrived at the Fei Xin unit by now, but it turns out that Meng Yi had come to see him, which surprised him. Meng Yi said he was on assignment in the city and had sent someone to replace him. On the other side of the Fei Xin unit, the person who had replaced Meng Yi had already arrived, and she was Diao. However, Diao, who had just arrived, was asked to lead the strategy of the Fei Xin unit. Thanks to her, Fei Sin's unit defeated the Wei Kingdom army that was trying to take back its territory, not only preventing the Wei Kingdom army, but the Fei Sin unit also took over a city called Lijiang from the Wei Kingdom army. A few days later, all units were ordered to assemble in Shanyang City, including Fei Sin's unit, Yu Weihua's unit, and Yu Feng's unit. Not long after, two pillars of Lu Si, namely Chang Pengjun and Li Si, came. Pengjun then said from now on, Shanyang City, which they had captured, would be renamed as Dongjun, which would become the eastern command center of the Qin Kingdom. After the meeting, Fei Sin's unit was assigned to guard the border directly connected with the Chu Kingdom. At the same time, the Zhao Kingdom was also making a move. After that, Li Mu sent Peng Nuan to conquer the Yan Kingdom. But it turns out that the country has a famous general named Zhu Xin, one of the three great gods of the Zhao Kingdom, thus making the winner of the war completely unpredictable. 3 days later, Diao brought news to Sin that the war between the Zhao Kingdom and the Yan Kingdom had ended. He looked surprised when Diao said the big war lasted only 1 day. The war ended with Peng Nuan's duel against Zhu Xin, with Peng Nuan's victory over Zhu Xin, one of the three great gods. 3 months have passed, and Sin have carried out their duties at the border. Soon after, Fei Sin's unit is sent to conquer a fortress called Dongjin. However, while on the way, they suddenly saw an injured boy named Sin Yu. When asked, Sin Yu said that he was from the Shu Kingdom, but everyone said that there was no kingdom called Shu. Diao then explained that before the plains of China were divided into 7 major kingdoms, there used to be 100 small kingdoms, and perhaps one of them was the Shu Kingdom. Sin Yu then asks the help of the Fei Sin unit to help the people in Shu Kingdom who are currently under attack. Hearing his request, Sin finally decided to help, even though it meant that Fei Sin's unit had to disobey orders because they had to go to Dongjin as soon as possible. Meanwhile, at the Qin Kingdom's palace, at that time, King Zheng looked to be having a hard time because some families who used to be on their side had now turned to Lu Si's side. Of course, this could happen because Lu Si had teamed up with King Zheng's mother. Thanks to that enormous power, it wasn't long before Lu Si became a prime minister whose position was only 1 level below the king. At night, King Zheng took all his ministers to a place that turned out to be the place where his younger brother, Cheng Xiao, had been locked up. He turns out to be planning to get Cheng Xiao to work with him, so he can take down Lu Si. Cheng Xiao said that although he still didn't want King Zheng to take his place, he was even more unwilling if a former merchant like Lu Si rose to become king of Qin. Therefore, King Zheng gave Cheng Xiao the task of gathering as many people as possible within 7 days so that they could exceed Lu Si's strength. As the first step of his plan, King Zheng intends to seize the chancellor's seat left by the deceased GAC and the now promoted Lu Si. The scene switches to Fei Sin's unit finally arriving in Shu Kingdom. At that time, soldiers from the Han Kingdom are trying to break into the kingdom. It didn't take long. Sin and the Fei Sin unit were able to expel the people from the Han Kingdom, and as a token of gratitude, the Shu Kingdom leader gave the Fei Sin unit a map so they could quickly arrive at the Dongjin fortress. After saying goodbye to Sin Yu, Sin and Fei Sin's unit left. However, on the way, Sin and his troops saw 3,000 soldiers who did not have war flags, so they needed clarification about which kingdom the troops came from. Not long after, he was shocked because the man who got out of the horse carriage was Li Mu. At the Qin Palace, it was seen that Ping Jun and Wang Jun had finally been elected as chancellors. This made Li Si angry because he should be in Wang Jun's position. This can happen thanks to the influence of Cheng Xiao, who can easily make Wang Jun as chancellor. The scene again turned to Sin, who at that time had succeeded in conquering Dongjin with Meng Tian and Wang Ben. Afterward, he said that when on the way, he accidentally saw Li Mu. Out of curiosity, Sin and Diao went into the forest and saw a tent set up in the dense forest, and the tent was Li Mu's tent. However, they were discovered by Li Mu's aide named Akane. Then Sin and Diao were finally brought before Li Mu. Afterward, Li Mu took Sin into the forest, where he asked what Li Mu's real purpose was in inviting the Qin Kingdom to form an alliance. But instead of answering, Li Mu challenged Sin to a duel, and if Sin won, he would reveal his true intentions. There Sin found out that Lin Mu was not only a strategist but very strong. It could even be seen under his luxurious clothes that Li Mu's hands were covered in wounds. In the end, Li Mu kept his purpose secret. Then, Sin and Diao suspect that Li Mu is there to bring the Chu Kingdom into an alliance against the Qin Kingdom. Even so, Sin said no matter what, he would destroy other countries for his ideals and King Zheng, who would unify mainland China.